Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Rosslyn Hill Chapel, a spiritual home for open minds. I'm Roger Mason, a chapel member and your worship assistant today. Today, we explore this month's theme of tales focusing on home and homelessness with chapel member Andrew Appleyard. We have a creche for children aged 2 to 5 and a children's programme, Bright Lights, for older children. Babies under 2 are welcome in the creche if accompanied by an adult. If you're watching at home, please join our virtual side aisle at midday. The Zoom link was in the weekly email, and you can find it via the link in the YouTube description. And those of you in the chapel, do join us for refreshments in this side aisle after the service. Our bookcase library is now available every Sunday, where you can borrow books about Unitarianism and other world religions and philosophies too. If you wish to borrow a book, please write your details in the blue book before removing it. At 12:30 in the hall, we have our monthly community lunch, which you are all welcome to attend. At 6 o'clock this evening, we have our regular 30-minute mindfulness, and at 7 o'clock, we have sound bath. You can find information about these and all our activities on your service sheet and our website. You can also pick up a copy of our Open Mind newsletter from the steward's table at the back of the chapel. Our collection will take place during the closing music. You will have an opportunity to make a donation in cash or by card. This month, the offering will be shared between the work of our chapel and our good cause for the month, Médecins Sans Frontières. MSF is an international organization providing medical care in more than 70 countries, treating people caught up in complex crises and chronic healthcare emergencies. I'm now going to light our candle as a symbol of our free and Christian Unitarian faith. Second candle as a prayer for peace for the peoples of Israel, Palestine, and in many other conflicts taking place around the world.
Thank you, Roger. Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, there is a place for you here in our spiritual community. Whatever your race, gender, sexuality, class, age, physical and mental capability, we welcome you here in the spirit of love. We come together each Sunday and we are curious to get to know each other in this spiritual community. So please turn to someone near you, say your name, and welcome them to chapel this morning. Listen out for the music, which will be your signal that this time has ended. Great. We can have further conversations afterwards when we have some tea and coffee. So let's sing our first hymn. It's number 33 in the purple hymn sheet, which is called Enter, Rejoice and Come In. As is our custom, please listen to the full introduction and then rise if you are able to sing. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. If there are any young ones in the audience, which I see a few, if they would like to come to the front, and I will read them a small story which is relevant to today's service. So if anybody wants to come up, please do. Great, can you hear me? Good. Oh, right, we're talking about homes and homelessness today, where the adults are. So I thought I'd read you this little story. It's called This Is Our House. George was in the house. This house is mine, and no one else is coming in, George said. It's not your house, said Lindy. It belongs to everybody. Do you see, that's George's house. It's a sort of big cardboard box that he says is his house. Sorry, there you go. No, it isn't. This is a house all for me. That's quite mean, isn't it? Lindy and Marley went for a walk over to the swings. It's not George's house, is it, said Lindy. Of course it isn't, said Marley. Lindy and Marley looked through the window. It's not your house, George, and we're coming in. Oh, no, you're not, said George. This house isn't for girls. It's very mean, isn't he? Totally right. Freddie was walking past with his rabbity. I've come to put the rabbity to bed, said Freddie. You can't, said George. This house isn't for small people like you. Very mean. Freddie took the rabbity for a ride in the car. Charlene and Marley mended the front wheel, which was good of them. George won't let me in, and let me and Rabbity into the house, said Freddie. Charlene and Marley, Freddie and Rabbity headed straight to the house. Stop right there, said George. We're coming in to mend the fridge, said Charlene and Marlene. Very true. Oh, no, you're not, said George. This house isn't for twins. Luther's jumbo jet landed in the house. He went to fetch it. Where do you think you're going, said George. Flight 505 has crashed, said Luther, and I'm coming in to rescue it. Fire, fire, fire. You're not coming in here, said George. Luther radioed for help, calling Dr. Sophie. Calling Dr. Sophie. Can I help you, said Sophie. We can get at the plane, Doctor, said Luther. Leave it to me. Sophie and Luther pushed past the crowds. Make way for the doctor, said Luther. We're coming in, said Sophie. Oh, no, you're not, said George. This house isn't for people with glasses now. Rashida had a plan. I'm going to tunnel in, so they're going to go under the house. She poked her head under the house. Go away, said George. This is my house. Well, this is my tunnel, said Rashida. Well, tunnel somewhere else, said George. Look, do you see? She's basically tunneled into the house. Tunnel somewhere else, said George. This house isn't for people who like tunnels. It was getting quite noisy around the house now, and hot, and George wanted to go to the toilet. And his house didn't have a toilet, unfortunately. I'm going to leave my house now, said George, and no one can go in when I'm gone. So what does George do? He walks off to the toilet. That could be the case, yeah. Well done, clever. Lindy, Marley, Freddie, Rabbity, Marlene, Charlene, Luther, Sophie, and Rashida went straight into the house. George came back. There was no room for George. This house isn't people for red hair, said Charlene. He's got red hair. George began to shout. George began to cry. George began to stamp his feet and he kicked the wall. Then he stopped. He looked. His friends said, this house is for people with red hair, said George, and for girls and for small people and twins who wear glasses and like tunnels. So George has changed his mind. Because, shouted Lindy, Marley, Freddie, Marlene, Charlene, Luther, Sophie and Ruida, this house is for everyone. There you go. You can keep the book. We'll give it to you.
Give me the book.
Thank you, everybody. If I can open this. Is it this one? Sorry, I'm useless.
There you go.
Brilliant, thanks.
I can take it if you want.
Yeah, already. Great. Thank you. We're now going to sing the children out of the chapel and into the creche with Angelica. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. Surround you everywhere, everywhere you may. I invite you into a time of prayer and meditation. We come together in fellowship each Sunday with hearts full of joy and full of concern. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to say their name aloud in the coming moments of stillness so that we may also hold them in our prayers. Spirit of life and love, God of our hearts, we give thanks for those who bring us joy and pray for the safekeeping of those whom we hold in concern. For all those names, spoken and unspoken, may they be surrounded by the loving kindness we offer them today. Blessed be, Amen. We now have our first reading, which Gail will do. It's called The Shelter by one of our shelter volunteers, Miles Taylor.
Don't tell me you haven't got it. Copy of it.
Yes, I have.
The Shelter by Miles Taylor. Now I'm at the cold shelter, adding bed making to my repertoire for a dozen men and a couple of girls seeking solace from the winter chill. I'm not just talking about the weather. We make them food, but that's not my province. No, but I'll help set the tables, knife and fork and plate and spoon, and then to the dishwasher I'll resume. I tell you this not to aggrandize, nor to social service advertise, but merely to emphasize how I find respite from cold weather, and I'm not just talking about the weather.
Thank you, Gail. We'll now stand, if you're able, for our next hymn after we've heard the introduction, which is hymn number 198, We Will Build a Land. please be seated. I now invite Claire to come and read The Streets of London by Ralph McTell.
A wonderful song, but I'm not going to sing it. Have you seen the old man in the closed-down market, kicking up the papers with his worn-out shoes? In his eyes you see no pride, hand held loosely at his side. Yesterday's paper, telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me you're lonely, and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London, show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old girl who walks the streets of London? Dirt in her hair, her clothes in rags. She's no time for talking, she just keeps right on walking, carrying her home in 2 carrier bags. So how can you tell me you're lonely, and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London, show you something to make you change your mind. In the all-night cafe at 11:15, same old man sitting there on his own, looking at the world over the rim of his teacup. Each tea lasts an hour, and he wanders home alone. So how can you tell me you're lonely? Don't say for you that the sun don't shine. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London, show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man outside the Seamen's Mission, memory fading with the medal ribbons that he wears? In our winter city, the rain cries, a little pity for one more forgotten hero and a world that doesn't care. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind.
Thank you, Claire. Let us now enter into a time of prayer and meditation, after which we will have music for reflection, at which time you may come forward to light a silent candle of joy or concern. Spirit of life and love, God of our hearts, as we seek connection with someone, something beyond ourselves, we remain humbled by the awesome complexity of the universe, the miracle of creation, and the grace of ultimate spirit. In this time of prayer, let us give thanks to our community and our many gifts by naming our blessings quietly to ourselves in these moments of stillness. Recognizing our woes and faults, let us sit quietly with those parts of ourselves which cause us discomfort, with a spirit of gentle understanding and forgiveness. Spirit of the divine self, we open up our hearts to listen to the wisdom of the still small voice that may speak in these quiet moments. God of our hearts, let this small act of worship send a ripple of loving kindness from this place to our loved ones, our acquaintances, and the wider world. O God, may we become the embodiment of divine love. Blessed be. Amen. I wonder how you slept last night, or if you remember your dreams. I think I had about 8 hours. Sleep, the length of time and quality of sleep, affects our day, our mood, our ability to make decisions. It was reported recently that 2 million children in England are living in crowded or cramped conditions, that 300,000 share a bed with other family members. More than a quarter of parents surveyed said that they regularly slept in the kitchen or bathroom or in a corridor on the floor. In a rich society, this is a shaming statistic for us all, because sleep is essential for life, and children who habitually can't sleep form habits that can lead to physical and mental illness in later life, diabetes, depression, and anxiety. Sleep is a normal part of life until you can't have it, and then you think of little else. Whether through systematic disadvantage or individual circumstance, sleep deprivation causes great suffering, makes us less resilient, less able to cope with change or uncertainty or conflict. Those going through homelessness spend most of their time searching for a safe and quiet place to sleep. To sleep outside in the city, it is hard, and many who sleep on the street, night becomes day, and day becomes night. For it is difficult to feel safe asleep when there are fewer people around. Physical sleep is a way that the body and mind should come to rest. Rest is about simply being a necessary state for human beings to flourish. As a universal need, it is close to being a human right. The beauty of home is a deeply personal and multifaceted concept. It goes beyond physical space and the aesthetic appeal, encompassing feelings of comfort, safety, and belonging. Home is where you can unwind and feel at ease, where you can add personal touches that reflect who you are. There is a sense of belonging. It is where you can express yourself fully, where you can entertain. A home can feel like a sanctuary, a place to create, whether it's cooking, writing, painting. It gives you a sense of continuity. The beauty of home is about creating a space you feel anchored, inspired, and truly at peace. It is a reflection of who you are and who you're becoming, a place where beauty is not just seen but felt. It makes you appreciate this week the loss experienced by many thousand Los Angeles. Quite a long time ago, when I lived down the hill from here in Park Hill Road, I would often walk to meetings in the West End. One cold, bright spring morning on Primrose Hill, I had a conversation with a young man who was sleeping rough. His pillow was a Bible covered by a t-shirt. His only other possession, apart from a sleeping bag, was a book by David Attenborough, Life in the Undergrowth. He stopped me to ask the time, as he didn't have a watch or phone. We talked about the book. I told him my sister-in-law was one of the producers of the TV series from which the book came. He was a big fan and spoke of his love of the natural world. He was creative and funny, although I could see he was shivering and wet. He insisted on giving me the book to pass on to someone else that might like it. And as I walked away, he put his head on the Bible. From early November to the end of January each year for the past 20 years, 15 or so members of the chapel and local volunteers each week have given their free time on Friday evenings and Saturday mornings to put out bedding, set up for dinner, cook, greet guests, stay overnight, cook breakfast and tidy up to make 15 or 16 homeless feel welcome and feel like they have a home. This, combined with 11 other faith organisations in Camden, provides an element of stability for those who, for whatever reason, find themselves in need of shelter. I recently had a conversation with a businessman at lunch. He became tearful as he spoke about seeing more people sleeping rough. And when I suggested he participate in a shelter or set up a direct debit to shelter, he became somewhat resistant. We agreed, of course, that it was not about money, but he felt reticent to speak to the people he was seeing either. It is easily done, but like many of us, he had let the perfect become the enemy of the good, and so he remained stuck, feeling sad and feeling helpless. In these cold days, practical compassion from individuals remains very important, even while the political argument continues about why there is such a steep rise of people going through homelessness. To live humanely and compassionately, we need imagination, empathy, and energy that can translate into practical action. But alongside that, we need to refuse to give in to our anxieties, but because we can't fix it all by ourselves, we turn actions back to words. Our final hymn is number 167, There Is a Place I Call My Own. Spirit of life, God of our hearts, may our time together encourage us and give us strength to face whatever we may face in the coming week, so that we may become a blessing to the world. Blessed be and amen. Please be seated and the collection will now be taken. Thank you. Thank you very much, John. And thank you to Roger, our worship assistant, to Gail and to Claire for their readings. And thank you to you for coming to the service. Please join us in the side aisle for coffee, tea, biscuits and conversation. And don't forget the community lunch today, which is held at 12:30 in the hall just down the way. Thank you.